think you should.
New patch, new meta as per usual, and I think this one is going to be quite interesting. We're going to be seeing a lot of a few things, Bastion being one of them, and a lot of mobility and flankers being the other one. We're probably going to be seeing some dive comps, some stronghold comps. Let's go over it all, making sure you know what you need to going into Season 4. We'll start off with the most obvious and blatant change, and that is Bastion. I made a whole video a while back saying how I thought he was too powerful, and I still do think he's too powerful. But he's in the game now, so that is behind us. Let's talk about what you should know about this new and improved Omnic. Bastion on defense is going to be a very tough nut to crack, especially on 2CP maps and payload maps where there are strong choke points where teams usually hold at. This means when you're on the attacking team, you're going to be wanting something to counter that. Now, old counters, some of them don't actually work anymore. As I said in my other video, trying to outrange Bastion isn't going to work the best anymore. Widowmaker and Pharah and Hanzo can all chip away at Bastion from very long ranges, but we have to remember it takes now like 5 fully charged shots for Widow to kill. Pharah takes 5 shots to kill, and also so does Hanzo. 5 shots to kill Bastion while he can heal and he'll have healers on him isn't ideal. It's not really a counter. You simply annoy Bastion. So we're going to need to find a new way to deal with him, and that's going to be flankers and sneakiness. The two best candidates for taking out Bastion, I think, are going to be Genji and, more potently, Sombra. Genji can deal with Bastion similar to how he used to, but he has to remember Bastion can now self-heal and has damage reduction. So it's not going to be nearly as easy as it used to be, and it wasn't always the easiest before if Bastion knew not to shoot at you while you were deflecting. Now it's even easier for Bastion. So Genji really needs to try to force Bastion to relocate or leave more than he has to try to actually secure the kill. Sombra is in the same boat, but she does it much easier. All Sombra needs to do to get Bastion to relocate and move and get him out of his sentry mode is hack him. Once he's hacked, he doesn't have damage reduction, he doesn't have his very high DPS sentry gun, and he is probably forced to relocate, because Sombra can sometimes win the 1v1 against Bastion. If Bastion is being healed or supported, Sombra won't be able to, but when Sombra gets the drop on him, which she usually will, she can usually also secure the kill. So Sombra is going to be an excellent pick against Bastion. You may be wondering though, what about Tracer? Tracer was always not a bad pick against Bastion. She's a flanker, she can get up behind him, and she has high DPS. That is true. Tracer can deal with Bastion, but Tracer also has to be a little bit careful. Tracer can no longer one-shot Bastion with a full clip to his backwards head hitbox when he's in sentry mode, the little blue thing in the back of his head, and she can no longer one-shot him with Pulse Bomb either. These are two significant nerfs to Tracer when it comes to dealing with Bastion. She needs to reload her clip before Bastion receives any heals or turns around and kills her, which is not the easiest thing to do. And if she has a Pulse Bomb, she can no longer just stick and blink away or stick and recall. She needs to stick and then land some shots, or land some shots and then stick the Pulse Bomb, because neither will kill him on its own. So she's going to need to stick around and make herself a little bit more vulnerable to do so. I imagine good Tracers will find a way to make this happen. However, mediocre Tracers and great Bastions are going to make this very difficult. If the Bastion is a very good player, he will probably know how to deal with a pretty good Tracer. That's more of a skill matchup in my opinion there, more than it used to be a Tracer wins this matchup. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to counter Bastion. Now, Bastion isn't the only thing we're going to be seeing. I imagine Bastion is going to be paired with a Soldier 76 a lot of the time. When you have a double hit scan like that can output a solid amount of damage, it's really going to be hard to pass that up. Why would you run anything else when you can run a very versatile and very high damage, very hard to kill comp that consists of Bastion and Soldier 76? Well, they're probably not going to. On defense, you're going to see a lot of this. So on the attacking team, you might start seeing something more of a dive comp. Now, dive comps are something that have been coming and going throughout the lifespan of Overwatch, and basically consists of diving into the enemy team with heroes like Genji, Winston, Zarya to put bubbles on them, sometimes a Zenyatta to put Orbs of Harmony on them, as well as maybe a Tracer. People that just jump into the enemy team, kill the crucial targets like Bastion or healers, and then get out hopefully safely, or get out with a numbers advantage. Maybe some people die in the process, but you killed more valuable targets. So that's how the dive comp essentially works. Given that teams will probably no longer be running 3 tanks, they'll be running either 2 or occasionally 1, this dive comp can be very effective if you know how to use it. Just be aware of one thing, and that is teams sometimes don't coordinate well with dive comps. If you're solo queuing, dive comps can be hard to pull off. You should definitely communicate with your team and discuss the dive comp before you actually go with it. If you're playing with a few friends, it can work a lot better. Given the emergence of dive comp and Bastion, I'd like to present Zenyatta as a very powerful support right now in the meta. Zenyatta has always been pretty good, but he's been outclassed by both Lucio and Ana, and he hasn't really seen much play in the more recent seasons. But now, with the emergence of Bastion and dive comp, he can do very well. In dive comp, he can throw his Orbs of Harmony on people like Tracer, Genji, or even Winston, and against Bastion, he can use his Orb of Discord and basically remove his Ironclad passive. Not entirely, but make it so he takes a lot more damage than he normally would, which can really help you in dealing with a Bastion. On King of the Hill, Lucio is probably still a better pick. I recommend running Lucio Ana there, but on defensive situations or on attacks when you can't break through a Bastion, sometimes it's worth doing Zenyatta Ana instead of Lucio Ana. So just keep that in mind. As far as the tanks of Overwatch go, we're actually seeing some variety, and I like that. You know, every game has a different amount of different tanks, and I really like that. Some games have 2, some games actually only have 1, and other than the Reinhardt that you see most common, all of the other tanks are kind of rotated through equally. Winston got some buffs to his headshot hitbox, which is now smaller, so that's good for him. D.Va's been nerfed, but against people like Bastion, her defense matrix really shines, so she still sees play. Roadhog, even though he's been nerfed and changed and his hook has been replaced like 2 times, is still a solid pick for just one-shotting squishies that aren't behind a shield, and Zarya is just still a good pick for saving teammates and dealing consistent damage. So I really like the way tanks are going. They're pretty well balanced right now, and I think we're out of the tank meta for sure, even though all the tanks are still very balanced, and I like that. So as far as tanks go, it's going to be actually very situational depending on the game. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about Bastion is a nice 2 CP strat where on defense you can run Bastion, Symmetra, and Torbjorn, and the whole goal is to survive the first 2 team fights, sometimes even only the first one, and try to get a Bastion with 450 HP, because then you can first point hold like crazy. You give Bastion some armor from Torbjorn, some shields from Symmetra, and he's got his 35% damage reduction, and he becomes a super unkillable tank with basically the equivalent of a Roadhog's health pool. And he heals more because of the way damage reduction works. He still heals the same amount, so he heals more, and he's got Roadhog's health pool, and he does a lot of damage, meaning you can first point hold on 2 CP with this strat. It's something you should definitely try out, and it's hard to deal with sometimes because by the time the enemy team sets up and realizes how they should be countering you, your Bastion is already stacked with 450 HP, and they now need to find a new way of dealing with your team. It's kind of an interesting strat. In the end, I actually feel like we have a pretty balanced meta right now. There aren't any heroes that I think are blatantly underpowered, with the exception of Junkrat, and I don't think Junkrat is necessarily going to be seeing any changes soon because he's a very niche pick, and like every hero, they have their times and purposes where they will be good, and right now in Overwatch, we're actually very balanced. I talked about how Bastion was really powerful, and I think that's true. I think as far as attack heroes go, Bastion and Soldier 76 are still the strongest, but they're by no means the only heroes you can play. Every hero has niche picks where they're good. Mei won't be good on attack, but on defensive maps like Hanamura, her wall becomes invaluable. And Sombra may not always be the best pick, but against someone like Bastion, she might be pretty good. Heroes right now are very niche, and there are definitely places for all of them depending on the situation. So I really like that about the game right now. If there's a hero you've been wanting to play, definitely try them now. You know, see how they fit into the meta before it's really set in stone, because now is probably your best chance to play someone that hasn't been good in past seasons. I actually recommend taking the beginning of the season to really work on improving yourself and actually trying to learn various heroes and know what you're good at instead of trying to climb. Save climbing for the end of the season, because your end of season rank is all that really matters. Competitive right now should be a zone where you are learning. You are still trying your best. It's not like you're throwing games, but you are in a learning process and you're not necessarily strictly going for SR. The SR gains are what you're going to go for near the end of the season, for most people at least. And if you get better, you'll gain SR anyway. Hopefully you all enjoy this. Be sure to tell me down below if you did, and also leave a comment with something random. That's what I normally do, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Have a good one. Lone Hawk out.